Welcome to the Love Pod, where inspiration, vision, and real connection come alive. Wherever you are, you belong here.
All right. Oh my goodness. Today we are so honored to have Stacy Schaffer, a licensed professional counselor based in Arvada, Colorado, who has spent more than 2 decades supporting children, adolescents, and young adults on their healing journeys. And Stacy, you're also an author of a recently published book called With Love from a Children's Therapist. Hashtag lessons I have learned along the way, super important, which we'll talk about more today on the show. And we're so grateful to have you share your insights and story and passion for helping others find hope and healing. So, welcome, Stacy. It's such a
Thank
pleasure to have
you.
you here. And we're
Thank you for
excited to,
having me.
yeah, no worries. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling okay. Just so your listeners know, I'm recovering from laryngitis. I feel perfectly fine. Um, I did my own audiobook, so you could actually hear how I sound if you choose to hear that. But we're pushing through. We got this.
Well, we're so happy to have you here. And don't worry, your voice sounds perfectly great. And I'm glad
Okay,
you're still
fantastic.
functional.
We
So,
love
so
that.
you've dedicated over 2 decades to helping children, adolescents, and young adults heal. And before we dive into your work, I was wondering if you could give us a little glimpse of your own personal journey and what first drew you to this path of supporting others.
Yeah, I say often that I am who I needed when I was younger. And I think that, it wasn't, excuse me, as readily accessible, therapeutic support like in my childhood. But man, would that have shifted things. And so my hope is to help create less hurting adults. And so to maybe help interrupt some of those patterns so that things aren't as hard. It's still gonna be hard because, living. But I love the idea of giving kids tools. Can you imagine having emotional language when you're 10? And so that's my heartbeat.
I really love that. And it's so funny because it's like we always kind of gravitate towards things naturally that maybe we needed when we were when we were younger. And it's like
Yes.
you were like, this is what I wish I had. Let me find that now. And then it's kind of like you become your own inner mom or parent.
Oh,
And
yeah.
yeah, what's beautiful is you're also you're serving in this way and you're sharing it as your life purpose. And that's so beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I wonder so much of the time how things would have been different to be like seen and heard and valued in a way that we're having more awareness that like kids need. Because so many of my friends that are therapists for adults, what they're talking about is their childhood when they are there. And so when we say like kids are resilient, okay, well, what choice do they have?
Yeah.
Right? They have to be. But what if instead of using that as a cop out, we gave them skills so they didn't just have to muster through and maybe make things a little easier than we had it?
Yeah, that's so important. And it's like whenever we are able to connect and communicate with them and say, hey, maybe this is what's going on with that emotional intelligence as well, then they, like you said, they have these skills and these practical tools that they can use to deal with that.
Yeah, and I think that it's so great because we're having awareness that the kids are paying attention, right? Like that
They're
it's
like
not just like
sponges.
they're yeah, because kids. And so my hope is in my writing that some of it is observations of what I've seen on my side of the couch for the song, because there are a lot of repeated themes and patterns that I hear about, and so bringing your kid to counseling is a luxury. It shouldn't be that we wish that was part of standard healthcare. But there are people who won't be able to ever bring their kid for whatever reason. And, we're also real busy because have you been outside? And so I wanted to have a guide of things that I'm hearing that could be useful to anyone who loves a child or who was ever 11 themselves.
I love that. And so speaking of your book, let's dive right into it. So with
Okay.
Love from a children's therapist, it blends both your personal experience with professional insight. And so
Yes.
we know what inspired it. Do you want to tell us more about it?
Yeah, I am pretty happy that it's really pretty. Um, and it's purple,
It's
like
purple.
you're good. Yes, true. Um, and I think that it was really important to me to title with love, when I had the thought like a decade ago about writing this book, because I wanted to come from a place of humility that a lot of times parents will come to me, call me, and say, I think that I messed up my child. And I'll say, well, your kid is being raised by humans. So there's a margin of error there. Let's start there. But the fact that you care about the emotional health of your child is far better than some previous generations. So I wanted it to come from a place of I respect all the parents that I see so much. Like you care enough to bring your kid to counseling. And so I didn't want it to come from a high and mighty, but yeah, I have degrees, but also you guys have lived experience with your kid. You're an expert too. And so that part was really important to me to title it.
Yeah, I really love that. And it's so important, that love aspect, because like you said, we are spiritual beings living in these human bodies. And with that comes mistakes. Like we're not perfect, but that's
No.
totally okay. There's not like a job description how to be a parent. And as a new
Right.
mom, I can totally say like you're going to learn as you go and you're going to learn together with your little ones. And so, yeah, the fact that these parents are wanting to improve that is super important. And to all the parents out there who are listening, like you do not mess up your children. I believe we come in here with these soul agreements. We come and we push each other's buttons, and we choose these relationships specifically to help us grow, and maybe for karmic reasons as well, and to help each other through that. And with that comes challenges. That's just part of it. And so I always say, like, when I look at some of the traumas and stuff from my childhood, I don't blame my parents, because I know that even though maybe they didn't give me the stuff I needed at the time, whether it was love or attention or whatever it may be, they were doing the best with the tools that they had at the time. And that goes for all parents and generations out there.
Yeah, I feel that deeply. My mom died when I was 22.
Okay.
And so a long time ago. And I like the person she was when she died would be very confused about my profession. Because what do you mean? Like you talk about kids' feelings, all that, like that doesn't, what are you doing? And she was in she was a dental hygienist. So it was like a tangible thing. You can see tooth, like, let's take care of it. Um, but I do believe things would have evolved. But her generation didn't have the awareness and the capacity to know what to do in a way that we do now. And so my hope is that my book offers a lot of suggestions and support to people that are like, I want my kid's childhood to be different than what I experienced.
I really love that. Yeah. And with each generation, the hope is that it's just going to get better and better, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
I mean I think that's definitely the hope. I know that it's kind of a bit of a trend these days that about people going no contact. That they're shutting things down because of memories of like an abusive past, for example, and they're not talking to their parents. My hope is to help intercept some of that at the pass, so that you like kids are heard now, so they don't feel like they have to be silenced later, and that they have no choice.
yeah.
That we're impacting generations so that patterns don't continue to exist.
Totally. That's awesome. And if you look at the children who are coming through now, they have so much wisdom to share, and there's so many like old souls coming through. So if we just take the time to listen to them and give them the power of voice and just hear them out, that's really all they need. And then obviously we can guide them and show them ways of how to live with love and how to deal with their emotions. But I think listening is one of the biggest keys. And and yeah, and speaking of those patterns too, so like working with children, I'm sure it brings up these deep, reflections of your own inner child as well. And so, what ways has your work helped you to reconnect with or heal parts of yourself?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. Well, it is a big pillar of my belief and my speaking and my writing that therapists should be doing their own therapy. Like that, not necessarily at all times, but be actively engaged in their own soul work, their own spiritual journey, all of that. So I consider the time with my therapist not only beneficial to me, but that it's giving a greater good to the kids that I see. I think that it's really important to me that kids don't have it as hard, because my childhood was pretty rough. And I just think if things had been different, I write about, like at this age when this hard thing happened, what would that have been like to be seen, heard, validated, valued? It would have been a different story. Would things still be hard as an adult? Of course they would, because life. But I think like younger Stacy like heals when kids tell me they feel better for like having a safe place to land. And so like younger me is like, yeah, that's like that. I do that. Like my office is what I needed when I was a kid. And so I continue to try to make that a place where where kids in their childhood can heal.
That's great, Stacy. And like your inner child always exists inside of you, as so does everyone else's. And so what's beautiful is you still realize the importance of doing your inner work and like being your own therapy, just like for me, like being my own mom to my inner child, to help, the work I'm doing with my daughter. And so it's so important that we keep on doing that work and being open to it because, there's so much to be healed. And it comes out too. What hear whenever you're speaking about this is like the importance of embodiment as well. The
Yeah.
more you're helping yourself, the more you're able to embody it and help your clients and those around you.
Oh, for sure. Like, like who I show up for, like in the room. Like, I can't ask kids to like walk through the fire of vulnerability if I'm not willing to show up in my own life as authentic and vulnerable.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's so awesome that you're doing that already. And it's a journey as well. It's not like healing
Mm.
just happens like that. Like it's a
Yeah.
gradual journey and I think it starts with an open heart and vulnerability, like you said.
Well, yeah, a kid said to me the other day, "Do you think I'm crazy because I'm in counseling?" And I'm like, "I met with your grand therapist on Tuesday, and just so you know, you have a great grand therapist." I was like, the healthy people are talking about the experiences that everybody has. I think that it's actually a sign of health. And so a lot of this stigma is being removed in the younger generation, which I love to see and hear, like tenfold. But there's still some of those threads there because they're
Which
always
is
like,
which is normal. And some people will always tell themselves a story, but if you can kind of just like attach from that and detach from that story and not give it an identity, it's not good or bad. It just is.
sure,
Like you're seeking therapy because you want to improve your life or your parents want to, connect with you more. And that's a beautiful thing.
it's a
So
beautiful.
yeah, that was a really nice response that you gave that child. And I
Oh.
just want to tap into resilience for a second here. So, as a new mom, especially, I was thinking of all like these attributes that I'm acquiring, and patience is one of them, and resilience is a big one. And I'm sure you've lived and witnessed this as well in so many forms, or perhaps even talk about it in your book. So I just want to ask you, Stacy, when you think about resilience now, not as a concept, but something that you've lived directly, what does it mean to you?
Excuse me. I think that I'm just sorry.
No worries. Take your time.
I think that it's really important to not give credit to our trauma, but instead appreciate like our own character and our own sense of self. Because I love being described as resilient. That is probably one of my favorite characteristics to be described as. But I don't want that in any way to be like, because I went through X, Y, and Z, and I outlined some of those things in my book. I want it to be like, I made
Mm.
an active choice to choose strength, health, wisdom, instead of choosing another path. Because I think sometimes people do, right? Like you hear in the news these horrible things about crimes, and they're like, well, they had a traumatic childhood. And I'm like, but it didn't have to turn that way. That was a path they chose. I chose the resilient path to be like, I'm in pain, but I'm still going to move forward in a way that benefits society, in a way that benefits me, and benefits a way of just even my own small community. And that it doesn't have to turn out like you don't have to choose the dark side.
Right. And yeah, and it takes awareness too, right? Because a lot of those people who do turn to that dark side, it's like unconscious and they're doing because there's this like pain and hole and emptiness inside of them. And so they're looking for ways to fill that. But when you have people like you who are sharing tools to deal with this and look at this and, have the emotional intelligence to heal, it really helps for them to choose that more conscious path. Yeah. And so,
Mhm.
sorry, go ahead.
Well, I just say to kids, like, I want you to have these tools now, because you're gonna need them the rest of your lives. And I'll say to parents in an intake because I meet with parents first. Can you imagine having these kind of tools when you were 9 to know what like red flags are, like, to know the term passive aggressive? And they're like, things would have been a lot better had we
Totally.
had some of those, that just the language. Like, are you kidding?
Totally.
And so I think, that there's so much more information that is hopefully going to arm the next generation in a way that it's going to create a better world.
It's so important too, even like with the rise of COVID, like more children were getting anxiety more than ever. And even for my generation, Stacey, like growing up as a millennial, like I would have anxiety sometimes, but I didn't even know what it was. Like I didn't know
Right.
how to deal with it. And I don't think it was till like my early 20s where I was like, okay, like something's going on inside of me. I'm labeling it as bad because I don't know what it is, but there's natural ways to deal with that. And like one of the biggest things is just taking deeper breaths. But imagine we had grew up learning about this, and so it's really important. And yeah, I love that you're targeting children because the sooner that they can learn it in life, the better off they're going to be. And you mentioned also earlier about the dark side. So I just wanted to bring up your favorite quote here. Even the darkest night will end and the sun will rise by Victor Hugo. So what helped you come to believe that in your own life? And how do you help others hold on to that truth during their darkest moments?
Well, that's a really good question. I think that my childhood is pretty rough. I outlined, there was abuse and neglect and trafficking, and I had a lot of hard things, and I have data that I made it because we're here, we're talking.
Here we are.
And so here we are. And so in the fourth chapter, I talk about suicidality and and trying to die by suicide when I was 14. And I was not successful in that, spoiler alert. But that everything felt over. It felt like I can no longer do it. But I survived and continued to choose a better way. And so I think that like knowing it's really important to me that kids, because I see so many suicidal kids. I like have a large population of suicidal kids and depressed teenagers. And I think that it's important to me that I'm like it, I don't not just like know that you're gonna make it. I know from experience that you're gonna make it and that you can, and that it is in fact possible because I'm proof. Like there's no reason why I should be alive based on some of the things that I've been through. Like in a movie, it would be a little unbelievable. And you're like, come on, like the character can't have that much trauma. But like I'm that character. I'm that character. And so, but here we are, and that like I'm choosing to do something with my life because I know what it's like to not have hope anymore. And so my hope is like I can share with kids, obviously not my story, but share with kids that I can identify with it feeling like you can't make it, and yet you actually doing it.
Thank you so much for being vulnerable there and sharing that. Sorry, you might hear my daughter there in the background. She's
I
supposed to
did
be
not.
napping now. Okay, good. But yeah, all the reason why you are here, and I'm so grateful that you are. You were meant to be here, Stacy. You were meant to be living this life, and because you have a very important purpose to play here. And it's so beautiful that your story has inspired you to do this work and to help inspire others that you are living proof and that their life matters as well. So I'm just really honored that, like, it's so funny because when we go through those dark moments, it usually is for a reason. It usually pushes us to where we're meant to be. And when you're going through that personally, you have so much more compassion for the people you're working with and for those going through it as well. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. Um, we were also talking about like safe places and how it's so
Mm.
important for them to feel safe in order to express and to be heard. And since you specialize also like in these, grief and anxiety and these emotions that can feel so big, especially for little ones to hold, what have the children that you work with taught you about truly creating safety, like emotionally and spiritually?
Yeah, I have a lot of kids who tell me that this is one of the only places that they don't feel interrupted. And I have two rooms. Like from COVID, I used to share with people, a couple that they're both therapists, but they liked telehealth when we all went home. And so I obviously came back, but so I have two rooms. So I have this room is called Twilight, and it's kind of like the teen young adult like chill room with the pops on, and my other room, Sunshine, looks like a therapeutic Disneyland. It looks like it exploded and like all the toys um and Squishmallows ended up there. And it's important to me that they get to pick where they want to be for a session. I don't
That's
know
really
if you need to
No,
transition.
no, we're good for a couple more
Oh,
minutes here. But yeah, thanks for
okay.
asking.
So
Yeah,
I can finish
Jo-
that. I can finish that thought then if you
yeah,
want.
please go.
And so it's really important that I always tell kids when they come in that one of the rights they have is a right to pass. I'm like, I'm a therapist, so I'm going to ask nosy questions to try to help you feel better. If there's something you don't want to answer, not now, not yet, not ever, you say pass, and that's always honored.
Yeah, I really respect that because it's so important that they feel safe to share with you what they want to share. And so I really like your setup you've got going on, Stacy.
It's pretty exciting. Like, and I think that it's important that they can exhale here. I'm like, that they're like, I'm excited. Like every Tuesday, I come and share my pain so that it's not as hard when I leave.
That's truly beautiful. Yeah. We will do a switch up in a second here. I have a little girl. I'm gonna go get down for her nap. But I wanted to ask you one more question before I leave you with Nathaniel, and that's about Willow. So you have a therapy dog. Would you
Oh,
like to
you want
tell
to
us a
see
little bit
her?
about her? Sure.
You want to see her? Oh, yeah. She was just asleep. She has a hard life. Okay.
Oh,
Uh,
come see the doggy.
this is Willow.
The doggy,
Like,
Willow.
What a cutie.
she
Oh,
turned
wow.
1 in June, and so she's a baby. But she's hugging me. But she's the sweetest thing ever. And so kids like just, come in and talk to me and pet her, and I think the combo is real helpful.
Oh, that's so beautiful. So I'm sure she's helped a lot of children find comfort and healing.
Yeah, well, we there was a tragedy in September in our area, and kids were coming in and crying into her fur, and she was just like snuggling them, and so I think it helped them that to come here, but I really think this one was the magic of that.
Oh, well, it
Look at her.
must be so special to have her.
Like Mushu.
Yeah, you have a cousin doggy named Mushu. That's Willow. Can you say Willow?
Willow.
Will
Say Willow.
you say hi, Willow?
As soon as we go, she'll say it. Oh, but I'm so grateful that you have her and that, she's able to help provide that comfort. That's so beautiful.
She like knows the names of the rooms. So like I'll say greet, and she'll go out into the waiting room and like greet the people, and then I'm like whatever room the kid picks, I'm like go to Twilight, and so she'll march into. It's so cute.
Oh, I love that.
Like her
Oh,
job is to provide comfort and affection,
best
and
job ever.
she's killing it. She's
Oh, I bet
killing it.
she is. I bet she is. That's so amazing. Okay, so we're gonna do a switch up now. You're gonna come on with Nathaniel. He's just gonna be a
Okay.
moment. And it was such a pleasure, Stacy. Thank you
Yes,
so
thank
much for
you.
sharing and being vulnerable. And I hope the
Yeah,
rest of the conversation goes great. I'm
I'm
sure it
sure it
will.
will. Jinx.
Okay,
Bye.
so just pause that there. So great meeting you.
Yes, thank you.
Here's Nathaniel. My love, you're gonna come with me. Just press play when you're ready. And yeah, that's fine. I don't know how to pause that. I'll just cut it out. So I left off at this question, and then if you need them, you probably won't need them. Okay, let's go, my love. Come on. Dobby, yeah. Okay. Bye, Stacy.
Bye. Hello.
Hello, Stacy.
How are you?
I'm very well. How are you doing?
Good. I don't know what you heard, but like full disclosure, I'm recovering from laryngitis.
I
And
did hear
so,
that. I watched your
okay.
video.
Okay.
Yeah, no
So, yeah.
worries. It's all good. Are you
Yeah,
ready
but
to just dive back in or do you?
let's dive back in.
Okay. I'm so grateful to be here as well with you, Stacy. This is our first time doing this swap off, and I think Julia
Okay.
probably told you about our daughter wasn't
Yeah.
feeling well for the last 2 nights, and I hear you have like it's change of season time, right? So we all are kind of going through some shifts and things.
No, I think that was genius of you guys to be like, let's tag team.
Well,
But
it's funny because like I know you work with children, and I feel like I don't know exactly know how I did this, but I managed to preserve my childlike nature my whole life. Like, and being around children really brings that out. But I love like playing. When I'm at the park with Luciana, I'm on the monkey bars just as much as she is, and I really love that mission that you do. I did hear some of the conversation as much
oh,
as I
great.
could with Luciana, as I was taking care of Luciana, and I really love that you also work with animals. I'd really love to get your perspective because I come from a background of Indigenous wellness and holistic health, and a big part of the importance I think is relationships, and especially those intergenerational relationships and our relationships with our brothers and sisters who are the four-legged ones, the flyers, the swimmers, and all that. So, how do you place that importance into the work that you do?
Yeah, no, I think it's really important. I see a lot of kids that are on the autism spectrum,
Okay.
and like one that I'm thinking of right now, initially I believe built a bridge with Willow. Like I saw them before I got Willow, which was like August of 2024. And we had a relationship,
Hmm.
but I believe with all of my heart that their comfort level expanded
Hmm.
with like the ability to connect with my puppy.
Yeah.
And so like I witnessed it happen. And so because I always say like here's Willow because dogs are better than people. And like I
Unconditional love, right?
oh my gosh. Well, she's like goes everywhere with me,
Mm.
and my um, self care includes I belong to a kickboxing studio,
Okay.
and Willow is the mascot, and so she comes with me and just like brings so much happiness,
Mm.
just her existence. I mean, I think that there's lots of people there that don't know my name but know hers, and that's fine.
Yeah,
Because they're like, I look forward to every Thursday, like seeing her.
that's
And so
wonderful,
I think
Stacey.
she's just her existence is healing.
Yeah, I think that's so true for dogs especially, and so many people can relate to animals, and that healing nature that they have. I mean, there's so much we could explore within that, and it's funny you mentioned that you work with a lot of children who are on the spectrum of autism. I remember when I was first studying Indigenous wellness and exposed to the depths of these beautiful cultures all around me. We talked a lot about our relationships with the animal world and in ceremony and stuff. And just synchronistically, I one of my life-changing books that I read in that time was Happiness is a Choice by Barry Neil Kaufman. Have you heard of that book?
Mhm.
Yeah. And in that, I was one of the really like belief changing paradigm shifts that I had reading that book because he talked exactly what you said, because their son was born severely autistic, and the doctor said that, they basically, your son's a write-off, he'll never amount to anything. But I don't know how they managed to do it financially, but what he and his wife did is they didn't listen to that doctor's, perspective. They totally entered into their child's life full time. And that's what they said. By meeting him, they would mimic his behavior and go into his world and find that connection point. And from there, they were able to teach him about their world, and he became not only a star athlete, he was a top academic student. And I feel like so many of these young artistic children who have autism on the spectrum, like they're coming in with such profound gifts in a world that maybe doesn't recognize their spiritual values. So it sounds like you're doing a lot to support and uplift that. Um, yeah, do you have any perspectives to share about that? Like some of the expansiveness that you've seen with the children and families that you work with?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, we have more awareness, so that's great. Also true is sometimes the kids with a significant diagnosis can be dismissed,
Mm,
especially like an ADHD one. They're disruptive. They're like causing problems. Well, or they're dysregulated. That could be
yeah.
true as well. And so the heartbeat of like my book and my work and my speaking is that kids are seen as they are,
Mm,
right? Not as how we want them to be.
yeah.
And that we are looking at the kid in front of us
Hmm.
instead of saying like kids are fill in the blank.
Hmm. Hmm.
That you're like, this is a unique individual that has like no like comparable person because they're just them.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's really important for me to let kids live in that what that identity is,
Yeah.
and be strong in that identity instead of just being lumped in as a number.
Yeah, that's so important. And I feel like that's such a there's so much power in that presence that you bring, because that could be extended to every individual that we encounter in our day-to-day life, not just with people who have some diagnosis that what people would say that's not neurotypical or whatever. I feel like that's really powerful because we truly are all these beautiful individuals, and something we don't talk about a lot enough is the unique presence that no one else can replace in each of us as individuals. So I really applaud you in your work that you recognize that and are bringing your presence in such a safe holding space. So how has this created a ripple effect around you, like in your relationships and also in your community and maybe families around you, this work that you're doing?
Well, I mean, I think it's been really fun with the book, because some of it is like a really big culmination of my healing journey.
Mm,
And I only really started talking about my childhood a decade ago.
okay.
And so, like even a little less than that. And so I have like invested so much in being authentic. And in order to do that, you have to heal what has hurt you.
Yeah.
And so I think that in my process of becoming more vulnerable, being more authentic to my spirit, to who like I am, has only benefited those around me. Because I think a lot of times we worry like about shame
Hmm.
and um, are people, not going to love me anymore. And that,
Yeah.
my experience is the opposite. Is
Yeah.
that like I being whole and integrated is only benefiting the community around me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so powerful. And there's such a need and on so many levels for that authenticity. People are hungry for it. They're seeking genuine community, and it can be difficult to find. I recently have found some really interesting ways of connecting with people. And this podcast is definitely a part of it. We've met some amazing people like yourself, Stacy, that are just doing really incredible work. And I think there's beyond hope for me. Like I really see us entering into this new era where we are truly celebrated and can come together back in circle. We're leaving the old paradigms behind, old hierarchies that don't benefit us, systems we are seeing in front of our eyes collapsing. What is your vision of like of seeing these ripple effects of embracing the uniqueness of one another, allowing these children to find their own unique expression in terms of flourishing and thriving in their own unique ways? How do you see that playing out uh, as generations kind of continue on this trajectory?
Yeah, I mean, I think like this, the stigma of mental health has like shifted a lot. So that in and of itself is incredible.
Hmm.
Like I had a mom call me because she's like, my third grader was told by another third grader on the playground about you. Is that the cutest referral you've ever had in your life? And I'm like, I think it is.
Yeah.
That's adorable. And so I think already like there's some significant shifts, but
Mhm.
the feedback that I've gotten like from the book is that a lot of people are feeling like their inner child is being seen,
Yeah.
and that like it has given voice to
Mm.
stuff they didn't have voice for.
Yeah.
And so my hope is that while children are still children, the ones that I intersect with, that they start talking about the things that are hard, so it's
Yeah.
not buried under layers of things, because like some of that behavior just comes out sideways anyway. And so the hope is that their journey won't be as challenging, and still
Yeah.
be challenging because human,
Yeah.
but
Of
that
course.
it doesn't have to be as hard as previous generations did without
Yeah.
knowledge, awareness, wisdom, support, validation, fill in the blank.
Yeah, yeah, it's so important what you're saying. I mean, it reflects a lot of our values in terms of community and getting to levels where we can consciously co-create together. And I'm not sure the exact quote, but it always made sense to me. It's like shared happiness amplifies, and shared challenges or sadness helps to dissolve. It helps us relate to one another, and it takes away that burden that you mentioned, shame. I'll be a little vulnerable myself, if that's okay.
Yeah.
This year has been very transformative, and it's certainly for Julie and I been, our capacity for being in the discomfort of the unknown as entrepreneurs, as well as young parents with a young daughter, and all of the things that come with that has been very challenging. But only in this past year did I have a number of synchronicities that showed me. First, it was a podcast that I listened to. What's Mel Robbins? She was talking
Mm.
about for not being diagnosed, for like finding out later in life she was ADD, and she talked about all the signs and symptoms. I'm like, okay, this is really strong. And then I like started listening to Gabor Mate. I read his whole book in like a day or two, and I was like, this explains like every challenge I've had. So I very much have been neurotypical or neurodivergent, with strong ADD challenges my whole life. But no one ever kind of pointed that out, and that shame that you talk about is a big part of that those of us who are more sensitive and aren't able to turn off parts of our brain, or make decisions in the same way, or get distracted easily, like we carry that. So I think that's really beautiful that you are it sounds like what you're creating really is a movement to through your work. So that's fantastic. I mean, what else what would you share to people who are listening to this, who maybe they have an inkling that their child maybe is on spectrum, maybe they're avoiding the medical diagnosis with all the stigma that comes to that. What are some proactive ways that are preventative ways to like kind of to prevent some of those shames and guilt things that can ripple in families, especially when they're not being discussed and talked about?
Well, first, I just want to thank you for sharing. I have found so many of my friends diagnosed with lots of different things later in life,
Mm,
and like they're all looking back and saying everything makes sense now.
yeah.
It makes sense. And like, gosh, that would have been really helpful to
Yeah.
have support like when they're young. And so I do sometimes use some of that like unofficial data
Hmm.
with parents, that I'm just like, look, like I have this friend that's diagnosed, and she really wishes that there had been an interception sooner,
Yeah.
because it wouldn't have been as challenging of a road, and it doesn't have to be now. And so that's the thing that we have so much education that we can make it a better path. So it's like, if your child, you bring your child to the pediatrician, they have a test for ADHD,
Hmm.
and say they don't get an official diagnosis, you at least have like more awareness of like what to do now though,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? Like, and things to look for. So I think that there is a little less stigma on diagnosis, even though, I mean, that's a big statement, right? Because we're a big world.
Yeah.
But there is increased awareness that diagnoses like also aren't everything,
Yeah.
right? That they don't encapsulate the human experience. I mean, diagnoses were created for insurance billing purposes. That's why they're
Interesting.
created.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, you know, in some random boardroom, and it's not as, in my opinion, on this side of the couch, it's not as like encompassing of like what I'm seeing in front of me,
Yeah.
giving me these six choices of like a diagnosis.
Yeah.
And so I think that I try to tell parents, like, don't get married to the diagnosis.
hmm
Like, we want to look at your child and what does your child need.
Yeah, it's so important. And like, I mean, I see this as a theme in your work. It's like really meeting the individual where they're at. From my perspective, thank goodness I discovered meditation around 18 years old because I think that really bypassed a lot of the challenges and helped me stay focused and clear. But one of the first form of meditation I learned was one of the techniques that Buddha taught. And what you're saying is very much how masters dealt with anyone who would come to them for help, right? They didn't prescribe some formulaic thing to do or some pill. They would totally meet the person in the presence with them and meet them where they're at. So I think that's such a valuable conversation for any kind of educator, any kind of parent, any kind of practitioner of any healing modality. Because it's easy to get lost in the business of the world and like I got to see this clients and and I got to go through all this stuff and we live in schedules and all this stuff. So how have you navigated that in terms of maintaining your authenticity, meeting people in their authenticity, and it sounds like you've spent a lot more time in beingness than in focusing on doingness and accomplishing and stuff, and how has that had impacts in your life?
Yeah, I mean, I think because in my childhood, in my teenage years, like the moment I returned from like the scene of my major trauma, I remember the exact moment when I was like, that was then, this is now, we're starting over. And
Hmm.
so I was like, it doesn't matter, we're take two.
Hmm.
And so in my young brain, I thought we'll just build a foundation from now. And so
Hmm.
it's fine. And like the rumor is that's not long-term helpful. And so when I started being honest, that I didn't feel congruent, that my
Hmm.
insides didn't match my outsides,
Hmm.
stuff started to shift, that like I felt more comfortable in my skin,
Hmm.
that I could hold more space, that I
Yeah.
had more capacity. And so, like, it was like rewarding to see, like, no, this work is painful to do your
Hmm.
own healing work, obviously, especially when it's buried under so much stuff.
Yeah.
But like, look at the benefit,
Yeah.
that like I'm not afraid of being found out.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not afraid that a kid is gonna ask me something. Obviously, like, respond with appropriateness, but usually kids are self-absorbed, so they like to talk
Yeah.
about themselves. But like
Yeah.
they're not gonna ask the one thing that I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
that it's just like that, like I own my story,
Yeah.
and that like I like who I am in
Yeah.
that, as
Yeah.
opposed to building a foundation on something that isn't real.
Yeah. I think this is so valuable, and the nuance and distinction for me is that, so much of what we're told about doing the work, doing the inner work, it's always in the frame of like improving yourself. That's basically the whole field of self-development. So it's very self-oriented, and and same with a lot of like goal-focused kind of paradigms and stuff. But I really love how you're expanding this conversation to really talk about when you're doing that inner work, how you're able to show up so much more for the people that you're serving. And I think that is like so important. It reminds me of what JFK said about it's not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. I like that as our model within community too, because in our travels we've met a lot of people who are like community seekers who have not done their inner work. They're very wounded and they essentially want to be taken care of by a community. They're not thinking, how can I contribute to community? And I really love how you're being an example, because I would imagine these young people who, they are carrying these diagnoses or these challenges, but they have you as an example and a presence in their life of someone who's meeting them where they're at, and you're also coming there with your whole self and the impacts that has. Have you thought about that before, and kind of that? Because I know sometimes we can get caught in, like, not caught, but like we can have a micro focus on our world. Have you thought about the greater impacts of this work?
Yeah, and because I think what old school therapist teaching, like old school when I was in school, um, was that you kind of had to arrive before you helped clients. That it was like, you might have a bad day, but like you need to have all of those things like taken care of and sealed up. And so like I lived into that because I was like, yeah, it was because it worked for me and it worked for like the story that I was living. But like again, it's not a good long-term plan. And so I think the feedback I've gotten like from my book, because it is pretty raw, it is pretty vulnerable. I tried really hard to be trauma informed because I didn't want anyone else to be traumatized from my book. And so my publisher shared that at my book launch party, that it's really sensitive in that way. But the feedback I've gotten so far, it's new, is that it's helping people be honest with themselves about like, oh wow, like one of my best friends, coworkers, left a review on Amazon and said, like, this book helped unleash pain that I've been carrying for decades.
Wow.
And so I feel like let's just take that person. If like if there are things within their chapter that benefited her to go deeper in her own work, that's going to impact the people that she's in community with.
Absolutely.
And so, I keep saying, when I was writing, like in some of the hard chapters, when it was really raw, my thing, and I just kept saying, if one person benefits from this chapter, one person, then that'll be worth it. And I believe that. So like every podcast that I do, every speaking thing that I'm like, just like I try to think like there's one person, because that one person matters, and that one person has a pyramid of people.
Yeah. I mean, it's super powerful, Stacy. And, like the fact that they talk about like letting go of that fear. It wasn't exact words that you used, but like what unlocks, would you say, when someone does that in their life? What does it, what does it open up for them? What kind of possibilities or purpose does it serve?
I think that for so long, like in like growing up, I wanted, and I would actually journal this all the time, that I wanted to be secure. I wanted to be solid. I wanted to be grounded. And I never felt like that when I wasn't honest with what was really going on, because it was always just performative, that I'm like, I know how to achieve, I know how to do the things. And so just see that surface level. But when you just see that surface level, you're not known. And like when you're not known, like you make up a different narrative about, the world, yourself, that isn't necessarily true. And so I think that like in doing I was thinking this, like, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, I was like, I am secure. The thing I wanted, I am. And that did not come overnight. And that did not come without the pain of the healing work and putting my own self in the patient chair, in the client chair, to be like, you know what, I want to experience healing and hope in a real way, instead of having a manufactured appearance.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that concept, I learned it in the language of helping the helper, and so there's so many people who, we talk about compassion fatigue and all this world. We actually had a woman on yesterday who talked about compassion, self-directed compassion, and how important that is. And I see you as an embodiment of that, and doing that work. I think that it's invaluable. I think it should be a prerequisite, or at least a like a parallel journey, kind of like what with Julie and I talk about with parenting. Is like we recognize it's called parenting because we have to continue doing our own inner work and be the parents of our inner child in the ways that we were not necessarily nurtured. Because Luciana brings up all of our stuff.
Oh,
Like
I
if
bet.
we're angry or frustrated because we have those emotional patterns, well, she's going to find ways of bringing that up because she's helping us in a very intimate spiritual partnership that we have going on, right? So, do you see that like obviously there's a client. I always struggle with this because coming from an indigenous holistic frame view, I very much wanted and saw myself as part of the community, but there is those barriers that the workplaces talk about. How do you see the importance of that in terms of your inner work, and how has that maybe even influenced some of your professional peers that you've met?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. But yeah, like kids will bring those things up, right? And as a clinician, I feel that too. I think that it's
Okay.
important to like it's a both and.
Mm,
Like I started another chapter because I like thought about like writing another one, and then I was like, "You calm down now. You calm down. Just keep it." But I started the chapter with the 11-year-old version of me walked into the room.
mm,
And so it was crazy. Like I felt like I was like witnessing young, like we're going back in time. And I was like, how did the
mm,
time like spectrum work? That doesn't work. And so I think that it's important to be like, like you're like know where you end and the person begins,
mm,
but also like that's how empathy is built, right? That you're just like there is that bridge. And so it's important that like I recognize I'm not them. Like serving them is not gonna make little Stacy have a better 5-year-old life. But like what did she need, and what do
mm,
I feel that she needed, and then I can
mm.
experience that maybe I can pass on
Wow.
in a better way.
That's really wonderful. It's like a way of honoring all of the layers of yourself in again in the context of service. I see this theme playing out in everything that you're doing. Um, I've contemplated a lot this too, like these parts of ourselves. I feel like I see humans like trees, like we have rings within us, and we still have our baby self, we still have our toddler self and our 7-year-old self. But I like what you're doing is like you're not trying to heal those parts that are in the past. You're honoring those parts and the wisdom that they've brought you in being able to be of service to the one that's in front of you. I mean, that's awesome. That's awesome, Stacey. I really admire and appreciate the work and the service that you offer in the world. And I mean, these messages alone, I feel like could totally revolutionize it. Or, I mean, I struggle with the word revolutionize, but like it's a paradigm shift that is needed in all of the therapy worlds, the healing modality worlds, and I think especially in academics because there can be like that coldness, and that conversation of sympathy and empathy, and I've seen like both extreme sides of that. I'm like, whoa, there's got to be a meeting, like a peaceful meeting ground here, and I feel like you are practicing that. So thank you for that.
Thank you
So,
for saying my mentor in the field. Her endorsement's the first, and I
mm,
love that she just says like you will learn more from her lived experience than from a textbook.
ah,
And like that meant so much to me, because I did not find myself in books. I
yeah,
did not.
yeah,
Like that, sure, there's threads because we all like had to go to middle school. Like there's threads, but I never felt seen. And so my hope is that like my book can offer some insight in a way that maybe hasn't been presented before.
yeah. That's amazing. Yeah, I really think that it's those again, it's that presence that we bring everywhere, and our perspective is so valuable. I think it contributes to the whole of consciousness. That's my kind of my perspective is that I call it the law of the circle. And what I like about a lot of teachings I've learned from different elders and ceremonial practices and stuff is that, in the West, we typically put the center stage on people, like we give awards to people and, we kind of like focus on the people and we're very human centric. But in my experience with a lot of different cultures, working with different indigenous people, there's always something that represents our creator at the center, whether it's a fire or water or, a drum. And there's teachings and all these things. And I feel like it's really important to realize that as we gather in a circle around, around the unfolding of life as it is, we each have this unique advantage of perspective that adds. So whatever you put in that center, you would see that fire, that feather, that drum from a different vantage. And the more that we communicate one another and share our gifts, like you said, authentically and be known, it adds to the richness of the whole context. And we can see what's on the other side and not have to go through some of those pains. We can prevent the pains and make life, the quality of life better for all of that, for all of us. So I don't know if that resonates with you, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, yeah, because I mean, and you talk about trees, and we know how they're all connected,
Yeah,
right? And so that like there is a rootedness in there that I would say we're not as alone as we think we are.
absolutely. Yeah,
You
that's a
know?
great way of summarizing it. Yeah. Yeah, I like to say we're all one. We're not alone at
Yeah.
all. We're all one, right? And if we reflected that to one another in our day-to-day life, and I mean, I feel like you've really brought that into a professional context, so that's amazing. So how, before I ask you where our audience can find more about you, order your book. I'd love to read your book as well. I think I'm an avid reader, and I love listening to people like you, especially who have lived experience. And I'm wondering. I really like this question. I don't ask it to everyone, but if you had a megaphone, Stacy, and you could talk to everyone in the world at the same time and just say something that would reach everyone, what would you say?
Oh, that is a good question, and I'm going to steal it.
You can have it. Please use
Yeah, I
it.
totally take that. I do that. I do a bunch of icebreaker games with kids. I haven't
Okay.
heard that one. A megaphone to the world. Gosh, there's so much I want to say. Um, I think I wish people knew the more authentic you are, the deeper, the richer, the better your life is going to be.
Hmm. That's powerful.
Thanks.
So powerful. Yeah, that seems to be a thread woven through our podcast, and I think you have, elevated that and really expanded on that and what that means to the one you're serving, not just to ourselves, and I yeah, that's really wonderful, Stacy. So how can people get in touch with you? How can they learn more about you, get involved? Yeah, where are you at in our world?
Yeah, I'm in the Denver, Colorado area.
Okay.
But my website that my publishing company made for me is authorstacyschaffer.com. And I'm guessing it'll be in the show notes because there's
Absolutely.
lots of ways to misspell my name. So
Okay.
there's that. But authorstacyschaffer.com, and on there's a link because my book is on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Audible, Spotify,
Amazing.
like anywhere where you find books. So there's links to that there. And then there's also a contact me form, so you can reach me through that form.
Okay, perfect. That's wonderful. It's funny. There's one other thing that's just kind of nagging me on my mind. You mentioned about like we all have to go to middle school, and I think this is the big part of what we seek to change. Like I really believe in indigenous ways of knowing and learning through community interactions and stuff. And the root, I don't know if Julia talked about, but part of why we call Light Our Vision a profound education association is because the root etymology of education is to educe. And it's not a commonly talked about word. And I won't put you on the spot. I'll just to ask you what you think it is. But it really means to draw or bring out what is within. And that paradigm is a really essential part of what we see, like to reflect that miraculous nature, that unique individuation of who we are. And why I say that is I don't know if, and I'm not like a sponsored affiliate or anything out there, but we started a school community on like SKOOL. And I have to tell you, Stacy, I've met some of the most authentic, engaged people in an environment where there's no ads. It's just pure communication. I was just on a call with an ambassador today and just talking like about his experience. And I tell you this because I feel like there's an audience that is looking for you. And I don't know where you're at in online, but Julia has organized it so that our emails include like links to our school community. So you're certainly welcome to come and hang out there. It's
Yeah.
a free community. And then also, if you ever want to start a community, I would be happy to just guide you, just help you start that. And because there's ways to do it successfully in a way that because there's many communities and not everyone connects because it's kind of like this whole new paradigm and people come into school, they're like, what is this place? And I see it happen. Like I've only been really on there for a few weeks now, and because I believe it's what the internet and what we all wanted it to be initially.
Yeah.
It's a place of pure connection. It's not about selling or self promotion. It's really about adding value and amplifying voices like yours in a way
Oh,
that in a way they've built it so the whole system is we can rise together and grow together in all kinds of ways, including financially. Like there's so many lovely things I want to share about it, but I'm bringing it up to you because I think that we will get to a time in our world where it's obviously not going to be the same as Indigenous times, but I think we will let go of these old educational systems and return to true education. And we want to build conscious bridges between conscious educators and healers and parents and professionals like yourself in as many ways as we can, because our children can be learning from all of us through all kinds of ways now that didn't exist even a few years ago. So, anyways, I say that to you because I'm super excited about it. I'm a passionate
yeah.
guy. So, yeah.
I would love to know more, have more information. That sounds fascinating.
Yeah, it is. It is really fascinating. I think one of the last things I'll mention here is, I've listened to a lot. I've gone to different, circles around prophecies and listened to many different elders. And I find it very interesting that so many different indigenous cultures talked about these times as a very transformative time. And, it's basically we have a choice as a species. Like we either go more into the diversions and darkness, and it's easy to do that, right? Like it's easy to just plug into like Netflix, and I find like so much of the content on there can be very violent, and so much media in general. I'm not just singling out that streaming service, but I feel like these very important conversations with people like yourself who are doing real work, their own real work, and then showing up and helping people is so important. And so that's the choice we make, to awaken to, you know, treating one another differently, treating our children, celebrating our children who are in a neurodivergent spectrum, who are bringing all kinds of different perspectives and gifts and creative skills and expansive ways of viewing our world. So I'm really honored to meet you and to continue following your work. And yeah. Is there anything else you'd like
Yay.
to share?
Oh yeah, my Instagram is Hope Restored.
Okay.
And so that's like what I believe about the human condition.
Mm,
And so I was gonna call my counseling practice that once upon a time, but then I was
hope
told
restored.
Stacy Schaffer counseling is catchy. And so I love that this has been such a fun process to expand into like other communities that are bigger than my own, because my hope is that my book gets out there to
Yeah.
the greater world than just my small circle.
That's so wonderful. Well, I very much look forward to learning it. Thanks for being an example and such a wonderful presence and spirit. And yeah,
Oh,
we look forward to growing together, Stacy.
yay! Thank you so much.
Thank you.